introduction. Happy to be here, and it's a pleasure. Wasn't a pleasure to travel here, actually, because it happened twice this week for me. So yeah, happy to be here and present Eternum. Eternum is a young Swiss startup that is offering circular buildings as products for the real estate investors and owners. And I can show you a solution for the problems that were mentioned earlier here, and I'm happy to discuss it further afterwards. So the problem is that usually buildings do not fulfill or do not manage to readapt in order to fulfill the needs of the users and the owners, and end up losing the value to the point that the land beneath them becomes more valuable. So the only option is to demolish that building and build a new one instead. It's purely economical. How can we make buildings to fulfill the changing needs? And how to reduce the impact, because as already seen earlier, buildings have a very big impact on the environment. We've conducted a study earlier, a few years ago, on 200 demolished high-rise buildings, and we found out that the average lifespan is no more than 39 years. In 80% of the cases, they were prematurely demolished, meaning that they have not reached their lifespan, their prescribed lifespan of 50 years. Of course, the CO2 emissions from the construction industry has already been discussed by Corentin, and is pretty important. I just want to mention that most of these embodied CO2 emissions that were released into the atmosphere for the demolished buildings are still affecting the environment, but the buildings don't exist anymore. So keep that in mind. Besides that, millions of tons of waste are produced every year due to demolitions, and also millions of dollars are lost every year in residual value that cannot be recaptured. Now, I have a question for you, and I would like you to think, who do you think is responsible in case of a building for the CO2 emissions or the waste at the end of life? Is it the owner, is it the investor, is it the end user, or the architect who designs it in a way that he imagines, or the engineer who plays an important role, or is it the manufacturer of the material who emits CO2 in order to produce those materials? Who do you think it is? Yes, the responsibility is shared, of course, I agree with this, but there is a problem with that. If you have been in a construction project, when something goes bad and the responsibility, or someone has to take responsibility for what happens, this is passed along the value chain and no one takes responsibility, and they have to go to the court to decide who was responsible for this. This is one problem, and the other problem is, by having so many stakeholders involved in one project, the responsibility is diluted. So the problem is not that big anymore. We don't see the problem as important, or the importance of the problem is so low that we don't try to solve it in terms of CO2 emissions and waste. This is a problem. Our mission at Eternum is to solve this problem, and our mission at Eternum is to make buildings more dynamic in order to evolve, readapt, and fulfill the user's needs, and also to extrapolate this to neighborhoods and even cities that are able to adapt and change according to the needs of the society around them. And besides that, we want to make this without having any negative impact on the environment in terms of CO2 emissions and any negative impact on the environment in terms of waste. This is our mission at Eternum. How do we do that? We are developing the Lego system that you've mentioned earlier. It's a kit of parts, of components that are able to be assembled together to create these volumes and spaces that we need without constraining the shape of the buildings, without constraining the floor plan layouts, and most importantly, being able to be reused and readapted over multiple life cycles in different configurations. Our aim is to offer buildings, in the end, as products that are carbon neutral from the beginning and that do not produce any waste during the life cycle and at the end of life from demolition. We believe our building solution is at least twice as fast as any conventional building system in terms of execution. We offer unlimited reuse and readaptations, and by dividing the initial investment in an asset that can be reused over multiple life cycles, let's say 3 life cycles, the initial or the cost per asset is at least half of what it is right now on the market. So economically, it makes much more sense to invest in something that can be reused. Besides that, our goal is already from the beginning to have a very competitive price, and I will show you how. Here is the circular load-bearing system that was developed at EPFL during my my stay here together with Corentin Fivet from SXL. And you can see here in this video how these Lego elements are being combined together in different configurations and in different types of buildings. We have a patent application going on right now, and the main material is CLT. We want to use as much as possible bio-based materials in order to reduce and to reach the goal of carbon neutrality. We use reversible steel connection to be able to disassemble and reassemble everything. And we can reach right now in one layer up to 7 meters in spans. You can see some pictures on the right side. There's our first prototype of the slab system, and on the bottom we've conducted mechanical testing in order to make sure that it fulfills all the requirements in terms of structural safety and so on. So another point that I want to raise is the fact that every single building is a prototype. Every single building is unique. This one is unique even though it may look like the other one, even though the spaces inside are very similar with the other one, it is unique, and it has not been tested for the users. We don't know how the users will use it until the building is being built. Besides that, it was not optimized for this, and it is very time-consuming in terms of design and also in terms of execution. On the other side, if we think of products, products are readaptable. Products are being tested already many times, and they are optimized for the user experience and also for reducing the material consumptions and waste, and also are optimized in terms of time, so we can make them in relatively no time. Another very important point that the product is related to the question that I asked you earlier. For a product, you can clearly pinpoint who is responsible for the CO2 emissions and for the waste produced by that product. So therefore, we want to offer products. We want to be responsible for the CO2 emissions of these products. We want to be, and we take responsibility and accountability for the waste produced by the products that we plan to offer. As I showed you earlier, the Lego system, and also Frédéric said earlier, the standardization of the components is very important. This is a topic that I want you to keep in mind, because we are able to manufacture everything in line without knowing the details of the buildings they will be used, which will increase the cost efficiency, as I said earlier. We will be able to be competitive in terms of price from the beginning when deployed at scale. Besides that, we can offer high-quality components and also fast delivery and execution. And coming to the building as a product, we want to offer the customer, who is the one who pays, a very similar customer experience as acquiring a brand new car. Fully customized as according to his wishes, give us all the details. We use our digital tool that uses generative design to create quickly the design of the building, and then quickly manufacture everything, ship everything to his site, and build it in no time. And then he can already start to return his investment. Besides that, we stick with the customer in the long term. We offer other services like monitoring the building and optimizing the spaces, or reuse the components inside the building to improve the user experience. And then at the end of life, we also come and offer him the possibility of choosing what are the future options for his components, how to recapture the value of these components, whether to sell the components to someone else, whether to reinvest these components in other buildings, or we can even buy back them and use them in new products and projects on our side. A very important topic that was also raised here is digitalization and automation. Just for us, digitalization is not the end goal. It's just a tool in order to give products that are better performing for the user and much simplified. The whole process becomes much simplified and reduces the times and so on. We believe that after all the inputs are being given, all the restriction, all the constraints are being introduced, we believe that the design should not take longer than 1 minute for a whole building. Because we know how to do a building, we know everything that is required in a building. And then we want to apply digitalization and also automation in the manufacturing, in the delivery and the execution process to make it much faster. But this is in the production phase. We also want to be able to do it in the operational phase. We want to monitor the building, to maintain it, to collect data from the sensors, and to improve the way the building is being used, and to improve the user experience inside the building. Besides that, we will have a database with all the components being used, And we are able to quickly offer future options on what happens with these components, how to be reused in other projects, how to be revalued, so to say. Our business model is very much comprising this whole idea that I showed you earlier. We want to offer building as a product in an upfront cycle under a competitive price tag, which includes these services of design, manufacture, delivery, and build in one product, in one package. But then we stick with the customer to offer monitoring, readaptation, and optimization services for an annual recurrent fee. And then we come at the end of life and offer him solutions to recover and recuperate the value within the components. About Eternum, we are a very young startup. We are in the development phase. We are currently part of the seed program at Leonard, and Leonard is a branch of VANSI. We plan to develop a pilot project together with VANSI and to benefit from their manufacturing support and as well their know-how in the field, because they are probably the biggest one in France. This is our team. We are 2 founders, me and Carl, and there are a few people joining already the team as we speak. We have advisors like Corentin here and Dario from HEA, another advisor coming from the Nest EMPA. And I think the main thing that coagulated all of us together is the fact that we believe carbon neutrality and zero waste should be a must in every single building. At the end, I want to tell you that I believe that the door to the new building era is productization, and the key, or its key, is standardization. Thank you.